0240 in the morning, March 28, 1971. Fire Support Base Marianne, Quang Tinh Province, South Vietnam. 231 Americans of the 1st Battalion, 46th Infantry are asleep on a hill they consider secure. They are wrong. About 50 men are already inside the wire. They are wearing nothing but green shorts. Their bodies are coated in charcoal and grease. They are carrying satchel charges, AK-47s, and CS gas. They have spent the last several hours inching through 4 lanes they cut by hand in the American concertina, without tripping a single flare or alerting a single sentry. In 60 minutes, 30 Americans will be dead. 82 more will be wounded. The historian Keith Nolan would later call it the U.S. Army's most blatant and humiliating defeat in Vietnam. The men who did it had a name: Bộ đội Đặc Công, Special Task Soldiers. The Americans called them sappers, and they were the most dangerous enemy unit America fought in Vietnam. First, a definition, because the word sapper causes confusion. In the U.S. Army, a sapper is an elite combat engineer. He builds things. He clears things. That is not what this is. The Vietnamese Đặc Công was a commando infiltrator. His job was not to dig trenches. His job was to get inside a fortified American base in the middle of the night and destroy it from within. The branch was formalized on the 19th of March, 1967. Ho Chi Minh attended the ceremony personally. So did Prime Minister Pham Van Dong and General Vo Nguyen Giap, the architect of Dien Bien Phu. The first commander was Colonel Nguyen Chi Diem. 2 months later, a sapper high command was stood up, equal in status to the entire Air Defense Command. The technique itself was older. Viet Minh commandos had been hitting French watchtowers at Bien Hoa as early as 1950. By the end of the war, roughly 50,000 men had served as sappers. They operated in 3 branches. Urban sappers worked the cities: intelligence, sabotage, assassination. Saigon, Hue. Naval sappers were frogmen. They hit shipping, bridges, river bases. The numbers they generated are almost impossible to believe. A U.S. Naval Forces Vietnam report tallied 88 successful frogman attacks between January of 1962 and June of 1969. Result: 210 Americans killed or wounded, for the loss of only 20 sappers killed or captured. A 10-to-1 exchange ratio. In a war where the United States held nearly every conventional advantage. The third and largest branch was field sappers. They went after air bases, fire bases, ammunition dumps. The fortresses the Americans believed could not be touched. Their core doctrine had a name: Hoa Sen No, the blooming lotus. You penetrate the perimeter, then you attack outward, from inside the enemy's own lines. A senior sapper commander, Bach Ngoc Lien, summarized the entire premise in one sentence. The technique allowed, in his words, the few to fight the many, the weak to fight the strong. And the governing principle for every mission was 4 words: 1 slow, 4 quick. Slow reconnaissance, slow infiltration, quick assault, quick exploitation, quick withdrawal, quick rally. Selection was hard. Loyalty mattered more than party membership. Training emphasized one thing above all others: reconnaissance. Sapper reconnaissance teams, Đặc Công Trinh Sát, would spend weeks studying a target. They mapped every guard rotation, every floodlight, every minefield, every wire fence, and the exact gauge of the concertina. Then they went home and built a full-scale mock-up of the base in the jungle. Every man rehearsed his specific task: where he would enter, where he would cut, which bunker was his. On the night, the assault element stripped down, sometimes shorts, sometimes a loincloth, sometimes nothing at all. They coated their skin in a mixture of charcoal, grease, and mud. In the firelight of a burning bunker, in the white glare of a parachute flare, they did not look like men. They looked like shadows. The penetration cell carried wire cutters, bamboo poles to lift the lower strands of wire, Bangalore torpedoes, probing tools. They did not snip wire cleanly. They cut it 2/3 through and snapped it by hand, to muffle the sound. Trip flares were tied down with strips of bamboo held between the teeth. Claymore mines, the Americans' own anti-personnel weapons, the ones stamped "front toward enemy," were quietly rotated 180 degrees. Sometimes the firing wires were simply cut. Weapons of choice: AK-47s, RPG-2s and RPG-7s, captured American grenades, and the satchel charge, a canvas bag, TNT or Composition B, a bamboo frame to keep it rigid. Cost: roughly $20 to assemble. Throw one into the open cockpit of a parked American jet, and you destroy $2 million of aircraft. The whole war was in that ratio. The first major sapper strike on a major American airfield came at Da Nang, 0130 in the morning, July 1st, 1965. A diversionary mortar barrage opened up on the east side of the base. A Viet Cong sapper squad slipped through the wire on the opposite side. They killed an American Air Force guard, Staff Sergeant Terrence K. Jensen, of the 23rd Air Base Group Air Police, the first United States Air Police killed in action in Vietnam. Then they used his unsecured telephone to redirect defenders toward the wrong sector of the base. Then they walked the flight line. The F-102 Delta Daggers of the 509th Fighter Interceptor Squadron were sitting on alert status, cockpits open, crews on standby. The sappers threw hand grenades into the open cockpits and fired machine guns into the tailpipes. By dawn, 2 C-130A flare ships destroyed, 3 F-102s destroyed, Vietnamese Air Force C-47s destroyed, dozens of other aircraft damaged. Jensen received the Silver Star posthumously. His actions were credited with saving 25 maintenance crewmen. That was July of 1965. The lesson was not learned. October 27, 1965, just under 4 months later, Marble Mountain Air Facility on the Tien Sha Peninsula east of Da Nang, a brand new Marine helicopter base. About 90 Viet Cong breached the wire. They used Bangalore torpedoes to blow the perimeter, then went to work with satchel charges and grenades. In 30 minutes, they destroyed 19 helicopters and damaged 35 more. Marine Observation Squadron 2 was left that morning with 4 flyable Hueys. Total cost to the attackers: 17 killed, 4 wounded and captured, 21 sappers, 54 aircraft. That is what asymmetric warfare looks like when it works. The most famous sapper attack came at Tet, 1968, just after midnight, January 31st. The C-10 Sapper Battalion, the elite urban unit operating in Saigon, moved on the United States Embassy itself. 19 sappers gathered at a car repair shop at 59 Phan Thanh Gian Street. Their weapons had been smuggled into the city for weeks, hidden under loads of tomatoes in wicker baskets. The inventory: 2 B-40 rocket launchers, 8 AK-47s, 20 kilograms of explosives. At 0247, they blew a hole in the embassy's perimeter wall on Tong Nhuet Boulevard. The first 2 American MPs at the breach, Specialist 4 Charles L. Daniel and Private First Class William E. Sebast of the 716th Military Police Battalion, killed the first sappers through the hole and radioed the alarm before they were shot down themselves. A jeep responding to the front gate was cut to pieces. Sergeant Johnny B. Thomas, 25 years old, of Detroit, Specialist Owen Mabust, both killed. But here's the thing about the embassy attack. Both sapper leaders were killed in the courtyard within minutes. The team was leaderless. They never entered the chancery itself. The 6-hour battle ended at dawn when paratroopers of the 101st Airborne swept the building floor by floor. Tactically, it was a failure. The sappers were all dead or captured. But the cameras were there, and the image of Viet Cong commandos inside the United States Embassy, broadcast that night on every television set in America, contradicted everything the Pentagon had been saying about the war. General Westmoreland told the press 19 sappers had been killed. The actual number was 12 killed and 3 wounded and captured. He never corrected it. The same night, the same sister units hit Tan Son Nhut Air Base, the Long Binh ammunition dump, and dozens of other targets across South Vietnam. At Long Binh, a 60-man sapper team killed 3 MPs, planted 18 satchel charges in the largest American ammunition dump in country, and detonated 11 of them. The resulting mushroom cloud was so large that some Americans on neighboring bases mistook it for a nuclear blast. And then came Marianne. March 28, 1971. The war was supposed to be ending. Vietnamization. American units pulling out. Firebase Marianne was scheduled to be turned over to the South Vietnamese Army in a matter of days. Security on the hill had gone lax. The claymores were not set. The trip flares were not set. There were no armed guards posted at the entrances to the Battalion Tactical Operations Center, a direct violation of Brigade Commander Lieutenant Colonel William P. Doyle. The 50 sappers of the 2nd Company, 409th Sapper Battalion, had been watching the base for weeks. A former member of that company, now a Kit Carson scout working for the Americans, would later identify one of the dead by name. He recognized his old comrade. At 0230 in the morning, they came through the wire. 4 lanes, bodies coated in grease and charcoal, CS gas grenades clipped to their harnesses. An 82mm mortar barrage opened the attack. then the satchel charges. They hit the Tactical Operations Center first, then the Charlie Company command post. They killed the company commander, Captain Richard V. Knight, inside his own bunker. Then they worked their way south to north through the sleeping barracks, throwing tear gas and satchel charges into the bunkers as they went. Captain Paul Spilberg, he would survive, and he would win the Silver Star, escaped the burning TOC into a cloud of CS gas, and watched what he later described as small figures darting cat-like among the spreading flames. The men who survived described what they saw afterward in the same words: wraiths, specters, half-seen shadows in the firelight. In 1 hour, the sappers killed 30 Americans, wounded 82, and disappeared back into the jungle. About 15 of them died inside the wire. When the brigade commander, Colonel William Hathaway, helicoptered onto the hill the next morning, Spilberg said he looked, quote, like he had just walked into Auschwitz. The fallout was immediate. The battalion commander was reprimanded. The brigade commander was removed from the brigadier general promotion list. The Americal division commander, Major General James L. Baldwin, was relieved and given a personal letter of admonishment from General Creighton Abrams. Mary Ann was abandoned 27 days later. So what did they actually do? They forced the wealthiest and most heavily armed military in human history to learn that no perimeter is impenetrable, that no base is safe, that a near-naked man with $20 of explosives can destroy a multi-million-dollar aircraft, and that he can do it again the next week, and again the week after that. The Đặc Công still exist. Today, they are a counterterrorism and special operations command in the modern Vietnam People's Army. After the war, they trained Cubans, Laotians, Cambodians, Soviets, and Latin American guerrilla movements, channeled, in most cases, through Havana. American base defense changed permanently. Hardened aircraft shelters, integrated ground sensors, dedicated security forces. All of it traces back to what was learned at Bien Hoa, at Da Nang, at Marble Mountain, at the Embassy, at Mary Ann. But the deeper legacy is older than any of that. In December of 1979, Bach Ngoc Lien wrote a passage in the party newspaper Nien Dun about what the sappers had been and what they meant. This is what he wrote. Sapper fighting is a living symbol of our national character and soul, our indomitable fighting will, our creative energies. Sapper fighting is the essence of Vietnam. The few to fight the many, the weak to fight the strong. For a decade, on the bases the Americans considered impregnable, in the small hours of the night, that is exactly what they did.